Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 5 tonight. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
And I'm Whitney Ward.
An update today on the murder case of 4 University of Idaho students. The suspect's attorney filed an objection to a motion to change the judge's non-dissemination order, otherwise known as a gag order.
This all comes after the attorney for one of the victims' family is now arguing that he should be exempt from that order. KREM 2's Amanda Rowley is live here in the studio tonight with the latest.
Right now, the gag order applies to law enforcement, investigators, and attorneys working on this murder case, along with attorneys who represent the victims' families. Now, the attorney representing the Gonsalves family argues he should be exempt from this order. Today, newly filed court documents show Latah County prosecutors and the murder suspect's defense attorney both disagree.
Newly filed court documents show Latah County prosecutors and Brian Koberger's defense attorneys together are fighting to ensure a fair trial. They believe opinions about the case made by the Gonsalves family's attorney could jeopardize that.
My name's Shannon Gray. I'm the attorney for the Gonsalves family. We're not going to be taking any questions at all. It's obviously an emotional time for the family, seeing the defendant for the first time.
This is one of the last times we heard from Shannon Gray before the judge included him in the gag order. Gray argues he should be allowed to serve as the family's spokesperson. But Koberger's defense attorneys argue Gray is not entitled to the same freedom of speech as the family, who are currently exempt from the gag order. And because they're exempt, they say the family can share their opinions themselves. Now, prosecutors cited other cases where courts took extensive measures to protect the right to a fair and impartial trial. They include restrictions on some speech by attorneys. Gray argues the Gonsalves family are not parties to this case. But that could change. Prosecutors now say members of the family are potential witnesses at trial or sentencing, which could mean they would no longer be exempt from the gag order.
The Gonsalves family's attorney, Shannon Gray, requested a hearing to clarify this issue with the gag order. At this time, a hearing has not yet been scheduled. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
All right, Amanda, thank you very much. And in our effort to bring you more to every story, we, along with 21 other media organizations, are pushing back for more transparency in the University of Idaho murder case.
We are asking a judge to narrow the scope of the gag order in this case. We believe you have a right to hear from police and other officials. Now, to be clear, KREM 2 has no interest in releasing information that could jeopardize the case.
But right now, the gag order prevents questions about campus security or student safety from even being answered. So we will keep following this and make sure to bring you updates.
Now on KREM 2 Plus, we are digging deeper into the Pennsylvania roots of the suspect in the University of Idaho murders. Hear from friends, colleagues, and law enforcement as they describe their interactions with Brian Koberger.
Plus, our Verified team takes a closer look at how law enforcement gathered DNA evidence. KREM 2 Plus is available right now for free on Roku and Amazon Fire.
We are continuing to track a developing story that broke into our newsroom earlier this afternoon.
At this hour, U.S. officials are saying that President Biden ordered the U.S. military to shoot down an unidentified object flying over Alaska. The Department of Defense had been tracking that object over Alaskan airspace within the last 24 hours.
Just like the Chinese balloon that captivated the nation's attention for days, today's shoot down of an object over the U.S. territory raises many concerns.
We're calling this an object because that's the best description we have right now. We do not know who owns it, whether it's state-owned or corporate-owned or privately owned. We just don't know.
Defense officials first observed that object on Thursday night as it flew over the northernmost part of Alaska. Fighter pilots who saw it up close determined it was unmanned.
This is a developing story, and we will bring you more information once we know more.
And now to a developing story. 4 people have been arrested for a deadly shooting that killed a 17-year-old boy and injured 2 others Wednesday night in East Central Spokane.
Those suspects appearing in court just hours ago. KREM 2's Kyle Simchuk is looking through the charging documents tonight, which lay out a possible motive. Kyle?
Well, the group of 4 charged with murder range in age from 16 to 21, and court documents show they did not know any of the victims who were shot.
When police responded to the shooting near East 7th and Helena Wednesday night, they found a 17-year-old boy dead from a gunshot wound to the head and 2 others injured from the gunfire. Within 24 hours, officers arrested 18-year-old Hagen Charbonneau, 21-year-old Gavin McGregor, and 20-year-old Sapphire Jesperson. as well as a 16-year-old boy who was not being identified. All four face several charges, including first-degree murder.
It does appear everybody involved in this was involved in a plan to commit a robbery and knew that at least one of the participants had brought a gun to that.
According to court documents, McGregor, a felon with a previous robbery conviction, needed money to pay a bail bondsman and used his girlfriend's Snapchat account to set up a robbery. Police say the victims did not know the suspects but agreed to sell them $600 worth of cannabis oil. The exchange was supposed to happen at the dead end off 7th. Charbonneau told police they parked their car near Liberty Park and walked up a trail waiting for the victims to show up with the drugs. And when they did, Charbonneau said their 16-year-old friend pulled out a gun and started shooting. Police found 6 shell casings at the scene. According to court docs, McGregor stole the van belonging to the 17-year-old who was killed and parked it near Charbonneau's apartment off University Street in Spokane Valley. They got spooked the next day, seeing a description of the van in the news, and planned to dispose of it near Reardon. But by then, a citizen had already called in the van, and police were watching it. According to court docs, they later saw Charbonneau get behind the wheel. He was arrested along with his other friends and told police the 16-year-old with them that night brought the gun and pulled the trigger. That juvenile was located at a Spokane Valley motel, and police say he fought with officers and pulled a gun from his pocket before being taken into custody. One officer suffered a minor injury. The name of the 17-year-old who was killed during the shooting has not been released. According to court docs, Charbonneau said the victims did nothing to provoke the shooting.
And those 3 suspects are being held on $1 million bond. Since the 4th suspect is a minor, we don't know what happened with him in court today. In the studio, Kyle Simchuk, KREM 2 News.
All right, switching gears to weather, it is shaping up to be another mild weekend across the inland Northwest.
Take a look at what is happening behind us here right now over Lake Coeur d'Alene. Just incredible. Perfect timing, a beautiful sunset. Our chief meteorologist, Jeremy Legoo, now joining us here for that weekend forecast.
Yeah, and isn't that incredible? That is downright gorgeous. We're that time of year where we can enjoy the sunsets now instead of it just going way too early. Right now over in Coeur d'Alene, temperatures sit right at 40, 42 in Spokane, 37 in Deer Park, and 36 in Sandpoint. You have 44 in Pullman and still in the 40s out in central Washington. We all fall back into the 20s tonight. That's thanks to our weak cold front that went through a little bit earlier today. Still have some cloud cover from that, but as you saw, it's thin in places, and that's making for an absolutely gorgeous end to the day. We're going to see a couple breaks in the clouds tomorrow, and by tomorrow afternoon, I think mostly sunny skies prevail. As we get into the day on Sunday, it's a mix of clouds and sun ahead of our next round of moisture. That round of moisture moves in Monday, and it comes with a bump in temps. We'll be back up into the 40s come Monday, but the weekend is no slouch. Partly cloudy and mild is the case tomorrow. Sunday, 43 degrees, not all that bad. Overnight lows in the 20s means it's going to be chilly each morning, but get this. With your highs in the 40s, you are back through the 30s and making your way toward 40 rather quick in the morning. So yeah, bundle up, but it's going to be a nice weekend.
We're headed in the right direction at least,
I
right?
like the sound of that for sure.
Jeremy, thank you. Well, the Washington Attorney General visited Spokane today to talk about increases in retail crime in the state. Greater Spokane Incorporated hosted a breakfast for retailers in the area where Attorney General Bob Ferguson spoke.
The Washington Retail Association says Washington State loses $2.7 billion to retail theft every year. The organization's president says 54% of small businesses have seen an increase in theft.
We're really bearing the costs of this theft. 25% of small businesses report that they've had to raise prices as a result of retail theft.
So the idea here is that when it comes to organized retail crime, as we've talked about, right, this is a statewide issue that knows no geographical boundaries or boundaries of a county or a city, right? It sort of calls for having a team that has a statewide perspective.
Attorney General Ferguson says the state started a task force that had its first 2 meetings last year. They're focused on organized retail crime, which is when people steal to turn a profit and then commit more serious crimes.
From the first meetings, the task force learned it is becoming more likely for employees to face violence while working retail jobs. Ferguson says law enforcement across the state needs to communicate more, and online marketplaces need to help reduce the amount of resale happening online.
In other news, a woman was found dead in her Spokane apartment yesterday after a welfare check was requested when she failed to pick up her children from daycare.
According to court documents, police arrested her ex-boyfriend in connection with the murder. 45-year-old Gene Kirkpatrick is now charged with second-degree murder. Court documents show daycare workers called 911 to request a welfare check for a mother.
Employees told police the woman hadn't arrived to pick up her children and wasn't responding to their phone calls. Kirkpatrick is being held in the Spokane County Jail on a $1 million bond.
In other top stories tonight, Eastern Washington University fraternity Phi Delta Theta is being punished for a hazing incident this past fall. According to a press release from the university, the fraternity is being punished for violating the school's student code of conduct with bullying violations along with alcohol and substance violations.
In the meantime, the university has withdrawn the recognition of the fraternity until this spring quarter. Phi Delta Theta will remain on social probation also for a full calendar year. Meanwhile, the city of Coeur d'Alene cleared several trees yesterday for improved access and parking to the Prairie Trail near the Kroc Center. According to our partners at the Coeur d'Alene Press, a new parking lot will then be put in by the trailhead this summer.
Constructed back in 2008, the trail currently runs 4 miles across town, ending at Hutter Road. The city also plans to extend the trail another mile to Meyer Road.